Now we're going to be changing to the ones where we see a minus. In the opening video for this lesson, all of the trinomials we saw, the last term was added. So now the key difference of this last term being subtracted is what is going to be the reason for the shift in thinking. But again, I'm giving you the factored form of this trinomial, and we're going to look at it using FOIL to see how this middle term of positive 2x comes about. We can see first times first gets us our x squared, our last times our last, negative 3 and positive 5 makes our negative 15. Let's look at our outers and our inners. These outer terms, x times positive 5 makes positive 5x. These inner terms, negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Those are what combine, the 5x and the negative 3x, those combine to make that positive 2. It's positive because the larger product has a positive value. That product is 3x, it has a negative value. So remember the way we add positives and negatives, you subtract 5x and 3x to get 2x, and it gets the sign of the larger value. Like for instance, if we jump down to this one, first times first, x squared, last times last, that's going to make our negative 28. When we look at our outers, we'll get a product of negative 7x. When we look at our inners, we get a product of positive 4x. One's negative, one's positive. We're going to subtract them. 7x minus 4x is 3x. And it gets the sign of the larger value. The larger value is 7, and that's negative, so we have minus 3x. But the thing I want you to notice in both cases is 5 times 3 multiplies to be 15, just as 7 times 4 multiplies to be 28. But now, the factors we're looking at of that last term, which I'll write those factors, so 15 out, 1 times 15, 3 times 5, because this says minus, we're looking for a pairing of factors that has a difference of 2. Just like 5 and 3 have a difference of 2. That's why if we factor this trinomial, we use 3 and 5, because those two factors have a difference of 2. If you use these two factors, 1 and 15, those have a difference of 14. And we don't have a middle term of 14. Please look, if we had a binomial that had an x and an x and a 1 and a 15, we would generate the first term, right? We would generate the 15 that's in the last term. But when we look at our outer and our inner products, our outer product makes 15x, our inner product makes 1x. We know they have to subtract because one of these has to be negative. When you subtract those, 15 and x, you get 14x, not 2x. So, likewise here, because that says minus 28, when you consider the factors of 28, 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7, you're looking for factors of 28 that have a difference of 3, which clearly is 7 and 4. The difference of these two would be 27. If we had a middle term of 27, we would be using 1 and 28. If we had a middle term of 12, because the difference of 14 and 2 is 12, we would be using the 2 and 14. But we have a middle term that has a difference. We're looking for a middle term where we get a difference of 3. 7 and 4 are the ones we use. So now, if we take this trinomial and we want to try to get those two binomials, we'll cover them up. We're going to set up our binomials with x and x, and we're going to set up with a 4 and a 7. Now, the last ones we saw, they were both plus and plus or minus and minus. One of these has to be plus, one of these has to be minus. And we have to look to see what difference are we trying to get. And we're trying to get a difference of negative 3. So here our outers make a 7x, our inners make a 4x. If you want that difference to be negative, you want the larger value to be negative. So we want that 7x to be negative and that 4x to be positive. Because negative 7x and positive 4x makes negative 3x. For the 7x to be negative, we have to have minus 7. for the 4x to be positive, we have to have plus 4 right there. And notice that's what we had right there. And as before, it doesn't matter the order in which those two binomials are written. I could have written the 7 first and the 4 next, but it's still going to say x plus 4 and it's still going to say x minus 7. But those two factors multiply to be that. Let's do some examples next.